So attendees will be starting here in 2 minutes.
Just so you guys are aware, towards the end of this, we are going to open this up for Q&A. We're going to try to get to everything, but I know from when I was first starting, a lot of the times you have questions that are like very specific. So we are going to give you guys time for that. Per Chris's message in the chat, feel free to type in your questions as we're going along, and then we'll go through and get all those knocked out to make sure that you guys really get the value that you came for.
Well, Ryan, thank you. Investors, let's get started. So good morning, good afternoon. Let's get this rolling. So, hey, again, welcome to our monthly Call Porter group call webinar. So every month, we're going to provide value and insight to all of you regarding the real estate investing space. And today, we'll be discussing wholesaling to buy and hold investors for massive profits. So at this time, what I wanted to do is I wanted to introduce both Ryan and Justin. If you can share a little bit both about yourselves to our audience and our investors here.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go first. So for those of you guys who haven't met me, we haven't chatted. You've probably drowned it in my emails and ads and all that good stuff. I'm a buy and hold investor, primarily based out of Indianapolis. We actually just broke 100 doors under ownership yesterday. I do quite a bit of wholesaling. We've done, actually just here in the next week, we've got like $40,000 in assignments closing, not counting like another 23 doors. So definitely practice what I preach. And I'm here to basically on this webinar, teach you guys how to find guys like me and sell them deals, because it's about the easiest it gets when it comes to wholesaling.
Cool. Well, my name's Justin. Like Chris mentioned, I'm the CEO. I think I've met a few of you guys, or at least chatted online with you guys. So really my expertise comes in actually running call centers is kind of where my background comes into play. I've done it for about 10 years in and out of different call centers here in St. Louis. And so my day-to-day is pretty much running everything here with Call Porter, hiring, training, adding new products, things like that, and jumping in when needed on certain issues. So yeah, we're looking forward to today, and thanks for coming.
Great. Justin, Ryan, thank you. And now, Justin, if you can show some of the images I'd like to share with our investors here on this call.
So I'm going to walk you guys through, Chris asked me to put together 2 wins and a loss for you. So this first one is going to kick off kind of the whole thought process behind wholesaling to a buy and hold investor. Why would you want to do this? Before we dive into that, I want to tackle a little bit of a myth that I've seen going around lately. I run a free Facebook group for investors that all of you guys are welcome to hop in if you're not in already. And one of the girls in there posted something to the effect of, how do I find newbie buyers? I was told to go after these people because they're going to give me the best margin. They're going to pay the most for my deals. And quite frankly, I think that's absolute crap. If you're having to sell deals to newbies who don't really know what they're doing, A, you have no longevity. B, they're not going to come back because they're not going to do well on the deal you sold them. And C, this is a really, really small community. So if you kind of get the reputation for being the guy who's selling deals at, 90% of ARV with no meat left on the bone, nobody's even going to open your emails. I've actually got a guy in my market who's pretty well known for this, and I don't even look at his deals anymore. So this is the perfect example of a house that you would want to sell to a buy and hold real estate investor. So the gentleman who actually got this property under contract was a wholesaler and sold me this house. Now, on this particular deal, he was having a hard time with flippers because the area was really, really volatile, excuse me. And the property needed either a ton of work to get into like the, new home level that they'd be competing with, or it needed about $50,000 for a buy and hold investor. So in this, on this particular deal, he was actually having a really hard time getting a flipper to buy it. And I ended up looking at it as a buy and hold guy. So one of the perks with selling to a buy and hold investor is that we're often going to pay more money for a house because I'm looking at the property over a long-term financial analysis. If I'm flipping a house, I'm planning on getting paid in 90 days. If I'm a buy and hold investor, I'm planning on buying this house, rehabbing it, getting it leased, and then I'm going to have that property pay me for the next 20, 30, 40 years. So this particular deal was actually really risky at the time we did it because there really wasn't a ton of comps for stuff that wasn't new construction or that wasn't like gutted hood houses. This area was like the picture of had just entered gentrification. The other thing that made this a no-go for flippers, it had a detached 8-car garage. So most of the guys that were looking at this deal, they were looking at bulldozing the house, scrapping it, and doing a new build because that was really what penciled in this area at the time. With me, I thought it's got 8-car garage. I can probably get a premium for rent. And this actually ended up being an incredible deal. I was into this house for $110,000. It just appraised for like 240 grand. So my bank on my cash out refinance actually gave me 164,000. So we got like 55 grand that was actually tax free to us, and the property's leased for $1,575 a month. Wholesaler got paid on it. I get paid on it. Great addition to my portfolio. This is a guy now who every single time he sends out an email, I open it to see what he's got because maybe he's got another one of these for me, right? Rob, what was the bank seasoning period? Great question. This particular bank, it was 12 months. So I bought this house. It was like right in January of 2018. Actually just closed on our cash out refinance on it last Friday, actually while I was in California. Justin, if you want to hop to the next one. So this one is actually a loss. This is actually a very, very bad, very dramatic loss. But I wanted to show you guys kind of what was possible. So this property was an 8-unit apartment complex, boarded up. It's in a great part of town, like B+, A- type of an area, right? The problem is this is a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot, 3-story building that as it sits needs about $300,000 worth of repairs. No flipper in their right mind would touch this thing to try to turn this into a single family house. So the loss on this deal, I actually just posted a video of it from my Facebook page. The zoning fell off. So the wholesaler actually closed on this deal before he went to sell it to me. And as part of our due diligence, we actually discovered that the property was no longer zoned to be an apartment. It was zoned to be a single family house. We went to the town hall. We filled out all the petitions, all the paperwork to try to get the zoning flipped back, variances, all of that good stuff. And it was totally outright denied. So good friend of mine is into this property for $100,000 that is literally worthless. It's very likely the town will condemn this building and force him to bulldoze it. So his actual losses will probably end up being closer to 130, as high as $150,000, just depending on what his demo and haul away costs. Point of this though, if you're a wholesaler and you come across something like this, most wholesalers panic when they get a multifamily lead. If it's not something they're familiar with, it's not a house. They don't really know how to comp it. They don't know how to analyze it. Estimating repair costs on, a 3-1 box is a lot easier than a 3-story, 8-unit building. On this particular deal, they actually shot it to us and just said, hey, what do you think you guys could do? We went through and actually did all the heavy lifting. Would have been a really good deal had the zoning not fallen off, but definitely an unfortunate situation and a good learning lesson though. If you guys are ever closing on your own deals, make sure you've got what you think you've got. That includes checking the zoning. Literally a member on my team, like a week before we were supposed to close, said, hey, verify the zoning. And we pulled it up on the tax system and it said it was a multifamily apartment. We called county and they said, no, actually, we just changed the zoning in January. That's now a house. So could have honestly been my 100K that I was out. So super, super bummed for my friend, but at the same time, super, super glad it's not my cash. So that's a good, well, not a good, but that's an example of a loss. One thing I want to point out while we're on this one is that buy and hold investors are honestly going to be a lot picky or a lot less picky than your flippers are. When I go into a house, I don't really care all that much about the layout. I'm not really all that concerned with like flow or how does the building feel or, do I like this layout? How do I feel about the floor plan? When I'm analyzing a deal, I'm looking at comps, I'm looking at cash flow, and I'm looking at current condition and what percentage of ARV I can actually purchase the property for. So, on something like this would have been 8 single family units kind of chopped up, but would have been an absolute cash flow monster had I been able to get it done. So another kind of note, another little kind of take home piece there. Justin, you want to flip to this third one for me? So buy and hold guys. Believe it or not, I don't remodel rentals the same way I remodel flips, right? I'm not worried about hardwoods. We put granite in our stuff now and we put nice appliances, but I'm not going through and doing all of the retail type touches. We've actually got all of my rentals are like the most boring thing you've ever seen. A lot of people don't know this, but one of the headhunters from HGTV actually reached out to me at one point, interested in having my wife and I put on a show. And I explained to them what we actually do. And they said, God, that sounds boring. I said, it is boring, but we make a lot of money. My rentals inside are beige and white, every single one of them. The trim, the ceiling, the doors all get painted the off-white. The walls all get painted the beige. The carpet that goes in, or the vinyl plank, is like a brown color that complements it. Super durable, but not super pretty by any means. This is actually the first buy and hold deal I closed on here in Indy. It's a 3.5 in one of the better neighborhoods here. I'm into this thing for 110,000. It actually appraised for 184 grand. So again, incredible deal. Rents for 1375, pays for itself, all that good stuff. But on this particular deal, it wouldn't have made sense for a flipper at the time. When I was looking at the deal, I was going to be all in for 110, doing a rental grade rehab, and comps were like 160. So to do more of a retail type flip, probably would have been in for 125, 130. Then you add in closing costs, financing charges, and flippers weren't interested. I actually debated wholesaling this property off and actually opted not to and decided to keep it. Honestly, partly because we were having a hard time moving it. I'm super glad I kept it. It's actually one of my favorite houses in my portfolio because it's actually really, really cute. So while we're on this one, I want to talk to you guys about how we're pricing these, right? So if you guys figure out the criteria guys in your market are using, if they're going to buy a deal before you even pitch it to them. So with me in my markets, I'm looking at 75% of ARV minus repairs is what I want to be all in at. So that means anything you can get it down below that is your margin. So if I'm looking at $100,000 house, I'm looking at 75 grand. Let's say it needs 10K in work. I want to buy it for 65,000. Now I actually build in like a 5K buffer. So I would really want to be all in at like 60, but most buy and hold guys aren't doing that. So they'd be looking to pay 65. So if you go and beat that house down to say 50, you can pretty much guarantee you've got yourself a $10,000 or $15,000 payday. The other kind of quick and dirty formula you can use is the rent to cost ratio. You've kind of heard like the 1% rule, I'm assuming, which is if you're into a property for $100,000, you want it to rent for at least $1,000 a month. So we do a 1.25% rent to cost ratio. So that $100,000 house, I really want to generate $1,250 a month. That translates really nicely to covering the DSCR, which is the debt service coverage ratio. So that's what banks are looking at when they go to refinance. They want to know basically, will this property pay for itself? And if it doesn't meet a 1.2, 1.25% debt to service coverage ratio, it gets pretty hard for the buy and hold investor to refinance out of. So if you're able to bring them deals that have that equity on them and then meet that cash flow perspective, I'll literally do that deal all day long. Now, something to note here with buy and hold guys, there's very different types. You've got your guys that kind of operate in some of the low end, like war zone-y type of stuff. And then you have your guys who are operating in stuff that's similar to this. I'm kind of in the middle. We go from like C+ to like A-. I don't really get into areas where like properties are heavily boarded up, properties are really vacant. I don't really mess with those areas. But I'm telling you guys, there's other people who do. If you guys have seen any of my content, one of my kind of big battle cries, if you will, is that I keep the best and I wholesale off the rest. So what I mean by that is I'm wholesaling off the stuff I don't like. I'm wholesaling off the stuff that's too small. I prefer 3-bedroom minimum over 1,000 square feet. So I just got a 2-bedroom, 1-bath under contract. That's only like 732 square feet. Got it under contract Monday morning, sold it to another investor for a $10,000 assignment in less than 24 hours. I don't know about you guys, but that's your call porter costs for an entire year and then some. That's your marketing. That's paying staff. I mean, shoot, I'll be blunt. Before I got started in real estate, I was making $21,000 a year pre-tax. That's what I used to trade 6 months of my life for. So I would do that wholesale deal literally all day long. So I've got one other kind of thing I want to go over. And this is kind of how my funding is set up for doing these types of deals. Because I think if you guys understand where buy and hold investors are typically getting their funding from, it'll kind of unlock you, change your perspective a little bit on the kind of volume buy and hold guys are actually capable of buying. So realistically, when it comes to my funding sources, I literally can buy pretty much an unlimited amount of single family houses. And I don't say that to be like conceited or cocky. That's not my money. This isn't like, I'm drowning in cash and don't know what to do with it. Woe is me. But using my model, I'm using private funding or hard money lenders. We're paying cash. It's not my cash. We're refinancing, or we're renovating the properties. We're renting them out, refinancing them, getting back our hard money funding or our private lender funding and putting it right back through the cycle. I literally just refinanced $600,000 worth of private lender capital on Friday. So all of a sudden I have $600,000 that I effectively can go shopping with because I've paid my lenders faithfully for the past 1.5 to 2 years. They're used to getting a monthly check from me. They don't want that to end, right? It's one of the nice things with working with private lenders or something like a hard money group. They want you to have their money because that's how they make money, right? So I'm actually working on a refinance right now for like 2.7 million worth of properties. So again, I'm going to have all of that capital come back that I have to then go out into the marketplace and deploy. So everybody in my market, when we do that, is going to get an email with, hey guys, it's Ryan. I've got $3 million in cash that I need to deploy, right? So what are they going to do? Well, crap, it's going to be easy to sell Ryan houses. I know he's got cash, right? So many people get kind of caught up in this where does the money come from? You know, it's almost like a mental block of thinking that people won't pay them for a house that they don't own. I actually just had that conversation with my dad, who's still a W-2 employee. And I don't typically talk finances with my family because it's weird because I'm so young. But I remember talking to my dad and he was telling me how hard he's working and kind of what he's doing with it. And I was like, you know, I've got to be honest with you. I made $10,000 in the last 23 hours. Do you want to know how I did it? And he goes, well, I'm driving. Let me pull over. So, you know, the money's out there. The buyers are out there. It's just a matter of you guys getting the deals and getting out in front of them. Bryce, do we get a portfolio loan? Yes. So we use local community banks that actually hold their paper in-house. So this isn't like Fannie Freddie. It's not in my personal name. It's in my LLC. Now this is recourse financing. So I'm technically on the hook for this cash should the economy crash, which I'm not worried about with how we're set up. If you can get over like $1 million in a portfolio, a lot of the times you can get non-recourse financing, but I mean, realistically, if you're losing your properties, you're losing your properties. But really not something I'm worried about with the kind of deals we have and the kind of cash flow we have. So yeah, we took six buildings, was 5 houses and a duplex to our local community bank. And they appraised them. Some of them, it was like, you know, appraisals are always weird. Some of them came in low, and then some of them came in like, I can't believe they think this is worth that much, but okay, it ended up balancing out as a whole. But on just those 6 deals, we're actually getting back 64 grand above and beyond what we owed our lenders. So for those of you guys who aren't familiar with this concept, that's actually tax-free money. So it's not technically income, it's technically debt that you're getting, even though it's on your portfolio. So effectively, I can pay myself, you know, $64,000, and it looks to the IRS like I've actually made nothing. So that's part of how the rich get richer. If you actually read the IRS tax code, it's written in a way that investing in real estate is the most financially savvy thing you can do. Justin, I think we're done with slides. Let's kind of open this up for Q&A because I'm sure people have got questions.
And Ryan, again, thank you. Amazing insight, amazing value, extremely inspirational. Right?
Yeah, no, happy to be here. I mean, it's I was given more, you know, hand ups, so to speak, over the years than I can count for. I mean, I've got people that I effectively owe millions of dollars just from knowledge they've shared with me that I've turned into actual cash from it. So happy to be here, happy to share. Rob, Bryce, you guys got any questions?
What sort of terms are you getting on the private money loans, the acquisition rehab?
Good question. So they'll actually finance 100% of our purchase and our rehab. They don't go off of like an appraisal or anything. This is literally private money. This is like mom and pop, friends and family, people I've met at RIAs. Shoot, that last house I sold, I actually funded from a guy off of Bigger Pockets. I'd posted a post that was like, I want to close on some deals. If somebody's looking to invest, let me know. And this guy reached out and actually funded that deal. So how we pitch it, we operate from the standpoint of how would I handle this meeting if I had $100 million in my checking account? Most people, the mistake they make when they're trying to raise private money is they come from a position of need or like a position of lack. It's almost like if you've ever gone and like test drove used cars and you get the used car guy that looks like he hasn't eaten in 3 weeks and like he needs that sale bad, right? Like this isn't like, it's not logical. It's like, you're going to take home that Dodge Neon, whether you want it or not. Right. And you're like, no, I'm good. Like a cat gave birth on the back seat. So how we do it is we operate from the position of I'm just loaded with cash. How would I handle this meeting? So how we present it is more, hey, we've got a particular program. You know, I don't know if you're a good fit for it, but basically what we offer, it's 8 to 9% interest only on a 2-year term. That term's renewable, and we try to make it where you never go a day without getting paid. And what we find is most of these people get used to getting this check from us monthly that in their mind is effectively free money, right? It's their money working for them. So they get so used to this income that they actually get mad when we refinance because all of a sudden they have their cash back. And if they spend any of that cash, well, they're spending money. But if they're spending the money they're making from us that their money's making for them, it's effectively a limitless resource, right? So most of them end up actually re-upping with us. We have a lot of them. I had another guy came off of Bigger Pockets that actually asked me about investing in a different deal in one of my markets. He was like, hey, would you do this deal? And it was in like literally one of the worst areas I've ever seen. They fudged their comps. They fudged their rehab. It didn't make sense with who was on title versus who was requesting the loan. There was like a million red flags. And I just told him, no, don't put your cash into this. And he's actually a guy out in Southern California that I'd never met. And he called me like a week later and was like, well, I've got 200K sitting here, Ryan. What do I do with it? And I was like, well, I've got a program. I don't know if you're a good fit for it, but here's what we offer, right? And then comically with him, he funded I think it was about $250,000 with us. And then he goes, I was thinking back about your pitch and you said 8 to 9%, but you only gave me 8. How do I get 9? I said, oh, well, you got to invest over 400,000. And he goes, all right, well, hang on, I'll be back. And scraped up another 200 grand. And I'll be blunt. That threshold is really whatever I feel like it is. It's not 400K. It's not 250. A lot of the times it honestly comes down to like what we need. And if I'm in a position where I'm just flush with private lenders, right? Why would I pay 9%? I've got a lot of people that only want 8, right? And as a buy and hold investor, I'm constantly working on lowering my cost of funds to increase my cash flow as well as my debt pay down. So if I can go, if I've got $1 million out at 8% versus 9%, that saves me a lot of money over the year. So that's kind of the terms that we're getting. Honestly, guys, there's hard money lenders and stuff out there right now as well that are getting really cheap because the industry is really saturated. There's a group Justin and I actually met in person called Dominion Hard Money Lending. They're based out of, I believe, Boston.
Yeah, they are.
And I think they're like 8 or 9% interest. And so again, money's out there, especially where we're at right now in the economy.
Excellent. Ryan, thank you so much for sharing. And if you can tell us a little bit more about how we can reach you as well, how the investors can reach you on this call.
How they can reach me or how they can find people like me?
Find people like you, reach you, and so forth.
So me personally, honestly, the best way to reach me is through Facebook or email. Email's ryan@callporter.com. Facebook, if you just search Ryan Dossi, I've got like a business page that I really treat like my personal page. You can just hit me up through there. But I do want to go over how to find people like me in your market. Because knowing you want to sell to buy and hold investors does you no good if you don't know any. So first place I would start is for rent signs. When you're driving around, write down the phone number, shoot them a text, give them a call. Hey, local investor in the area. I've got deals all the time that I want to offload. Are you still buying? None of these guys are really going to tell you no. Occasionally you're going to get like their gatekeeper, like nobody's going to call a for rent sign and get me, right? But if they tell the gal who answers, I'm a local investor, I've got a deal I want Ryan to look at, she's going to get that to me. So you can local rent signs, Craigslist. We'll go through and like, if you weed out anything that looks like a real estate broker or like a property manager, you're looking for like, typically it's kind of a vague, crappy ad, probably an owner who's trying to lease their own property. And then we'll do the same thing with like Zillow, Trulia, those types of places. Look at stuff that's for rent and actually reach out to them.
Excellent. Great. Well, investors, this concludes our webinar. Thank you so much for joining us on this call today. We're going to have this call monthly moving forward, and we plan to have this on the third Wednesday of every month moving forward. So we will reach out here in a few weeks with the next call. Look forward to connecting with you guys soon.
Hey, thank you guys all for hanging out with us.
Yep. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.